I'm Natasha.
And I'm Madison.
We're so glad you're here this week. I'm going to give you a dad joke. In the spirit of fall,
It's about time.
because it feels so good outside. And we're in sweaters in North Florida, okay?
That's a big deal.
This is a big deal. All right. It's monumental moment right here. Let's get into the dad joke. What does a ghost mom say when she gets in the car?
Boo. I don't know.
Fasten your sheet belts.
That's cute.
Yeah, whatever. It was cute. We're so glad you're back with us this week. This week, we're going to be talking about Jonah, and I'm so excited because Jonah is probably a lot like us, and Jonah ran 5 times the miles away from where God called him to be. And how often in life are you just running away? And if you are running away, let's get you back on track and help you champion that season and getting back to where God's calling you to be. If you have your Bibles or if you have your phone, I encourage you to pause and read through Jonah 1 through 16. If you don't, I'll just read it for you. And it starts like this. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. I'm going to mess up a lot of names in here, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to try. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for the port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. So back then, a lot of the ships were just made of like wood, not like they are now. If it was a cruise ship, I think you could make it, maybe. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God, and they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish." Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity." So I looked this up because I'm like, okay, what are they talking about? Like casting lots. And it's kind of like that old thing where like you pull the straws and it's like the shortest straw that person like leaves or whatever. They're basically putting blame on somebody. And so in this scenario, it fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of works do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you?" He answered, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." This terrified them, and they asked, "What have you done?" They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. So that's like a little snippet they have in the Jesus Bible. And then it says, the sea was getting rougher and rougher. So they asked him, "What should we do to you to make the sea calm down for us?" Say that 7 times fast because I butchered that. I'm sorry, guys. "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he replied, "and it will become calm. I know that this is my fault, and this great storm has come upon you." So he's basically telling them, like, throw me over. This is my fault. I'm taking responsibility. But the men did their best to row back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried out to the Lord, "Please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, Lord, for you, Lord, have done us as you pleased." Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. Again, that's Jonah 1 through 16. I know it's a lot, but we're going to break it down for you. So there's a lot happening in Jonah. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot to consider, variables, and who do you trust? Who do you believe? And in their case, who are they praying to? They're not just praying to one God. They're praying to multiple gods because all of them are believing something different. But in this instant, we're just going to talk about Jonah for a second. He's called to Nineveh. And so in that time period, Nineveh is against the Lord. They're doing some horrible things. And that's us. Like, God's calling us to things, and it's in the pit of your stomach. You just know that God's calling you to do something different than everybody else. It can be a career change. It can changing your viewpoint about something to talk to someone. It can be many things, but are you listening to him? How do we know if God's calling us to do something?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I personally get a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I had to be able to differentiate, okay, am I feeling anxious?
Yeah.
What's this feeling in my stomach? Why do I feel, it's almost like a magnet.
Oh, okay. That's a good I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you just feel drawn to something or someone. You know, we talk about it all the time. Why does this person keep popping up in my head? Why am I thinking about them? I haven't thought about them in years, but you just feel the urge to text them. You're thinking, what the heck? I haven't talked to Susie Q since middle school.
Susie
like,
Q.
I don't know. I haven't talked to Susie since middle school. Why is she on my heart? Run into Susie. This actually happened. I'm not going to use names, but I was thinking about somebody and I didn't text them. Run into them at the grocery store.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not kidding, guys. These pulls on your heart are so real. I didn't text them. Run into them at the grocery store. We talk for 15, 20 minutes as we do right by the coffee creamer. And she goes on to tell me that she's back into town because she's had some health scares and had a few little procedures to try to narrow down what's going on, and she needed prayer.
Wow.
Had I texted her, I would have been able to pray for her all along.
Yeah.
Who knows if she would have felt compelled to open up to me about it, but because we were such longtime friends and we ran into each other, I wish I would have acted on what God was calling me to do. But sometimes it's hard because sometimes we don't always want to do it. Sometimes you'll get into your car and you're just having a rough day. We always talk about we must have the same taste in music because I always go to throwbacks. I don't know. I always want to throw on throwbacks, but sometimes you just need to worship. Yeah. And I can feel it in my stomach, and I'll keep skipping through songs on the playlist I listen to all the time, and nothing seems right. And you just have a feeling in your stomach. It's like, no, I need you to worship me right now. You know, this is just trust me. You know, there's either going to be a revelation through this or something. So to me, it just feels like a magnet. I feel drawn. I get a feeling in my stomach. And whenever I don't obey, it ends up coming right back up and hitting me in the face. Like, okay, God, that was you. So
like, I guess just to like challenge our listeners, and why didn't you text her?
I was selfish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was just me, and I'm thinking, I don't know. What is she going to think if I'm reaching out to her after so long? I'm embarrassed that I haven't talked to this person in so long. We get so crazy busy with life, but that's no excuse to reach out and connect with friends that you haven't, that maybe you live in different places now or you've grown apart for whatever reason. If you feel called to reach out to them, you never know what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
So I felt that heavily for days, that oh my gosh, that was the Lord on my heart. That was him calling me to talk to this person so that way I could be covering them in prayer. Yeah. And I didn't do it. And how many times, and that's not the first time it happened, and I know it's not the last. Yeah. Because it's so hard to differentiate sometimes what is the Lord and what's just in your mind.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's good that we like to be honest on this podcast with you guys. Like, it's just the reality of we're people too, and we're gonna make mistakes, but hopefully you guys can hear our mistakes of like, we didn't listen, and like we learned from it, and we know it's probably not gonna be the last time, because the differentiation can be hard sometimes, and like you said, you just were selfish, and that's okay, because you know, sometimes when you don't listen to the Lord, you're like, oh, it's just me. Like, you know, and that's okay. And it's learning to differentiate that and learning, but God gave you another opportunity. Yeah. And she was there. Yeah. Like, or and that was totally not you.
Yeah. Or you think you're too busy, or, oh, I'll text them later, and you forget, or, oh, I told this person I'd follow up with them and I didn't. Yeah. Prioritizing, you know, right then and there. If you feel like the Lord is calling you to do something, do it right then and there, because without a doubt, life is going to get in the way. Yeah. More times than not, life is going to continue to get in the way. And if you don't act, and that's either the world coming back at you, it's something trying to get in the way of you talking to that person, the world will act against you in that. So just act on it if you get the feeling to do so.
Yeah. What do you do in a situation like that where maybe it's a complete stranger? It's uncomfortable and it's hard. Like, how would you encourage someone to like lean into that?
If it's a complete stranger?
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and...
You look like you're having a panic attack with just that question.
Well, because I remember, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
And I think about when we were in youth so many years ago, we would have days on the weekends where groups of us would go downtown St. Augustine and we would just pray for strangers. And that's something that I feel like, at least I'm not speaking for any of you on the other side of the camera, you might feel completely comfortable praying for those out in public or strangers. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get over.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so young and just being fearless. Hey, can I pray for you? We talked about me praying with my hygienist forever ago, a few podcasts back. Just take a deep breath. And I was reading the Bible the other day, and the Lord will give you the words to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're doing the Lord's work, starting out can be tough. You know, sometimes I get shaky. Sometimes I get nervous to approach somebody that I don't know. And I just feel like the Lord is calling me to, even if it's just a compliment, even if it's going up to them and saying, hey, you look happy today, you know, or, hey, I don't know what's going on, but just know that I see you and know that I'm praying for you. You know, what's your name? I'm Madison. It's very nice to meet you. I just felt like I needed to come over and talk to you today.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, hi, the Lord called me to come and speak to you. And you know, the Lord will give you the approach depending on the situation. And I think that acting on it, and if you feel the Lord's calling to do so, he's going to give you the words to say.
Absolutely.
So just be obedient. And he'll do the rest. He'll take care of you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's crazy too. Like people I've prayed for, I feel like in some way, somehow it relates to things that I've been through. And God does that on purpose because you know how to pray for them, if that makes sense, and what could be comforting to them. And the Lord really will take over. I remember we did baptisms at church, and there was people sitting in the back of the church, and everyone was walking by them and they were crying. And I was like, you know what? There's a million people out there, not a million, but there's a bunch of people watching the baptisms. I'm going to ask if they want prayer, because nobody asked them. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't need to watch people get baptized because I know there's people out there that are celebrating them. I'm going to make sure that they feel seen and heard as well. And I just remember, like, they're like, yeah, can you pray for me? I was like, yeah, of course. Like, let's do this. I love praying for people. And I don't remember anything I said.
No.
Like, I have no idea. I know I threw out some Bible verses. I know that, you know, I prayed for them when we talked. I don't remember what I said in my prayer, but I know that the Lord took over in that moment and said whatever that person needed to hear. And I hope that it served them in some way. But that may happen, like when you're praying, that you're not going to remember what you said, or even if it helped them. But I promise you that the Lord is telling you to pray for someone because he needs to say something to them. And it might not even be like something super significant or life-changing. It could even be like that person just read that Bible verse or heard that Bible verse and you reminded them, and like it could have been a connection to them. I know that's happened to me. Like I read a verse and like I was praying and that verse popped up for me and I was just like, whoa, like such a coincidence. And like God will use you if you allow him to. Something that I did when I really wanted to pray for people and I didn't know how, in my quiet time and in my everyday life, I was like, Lord, use me. How do I gain wisdom? How do I gain insight? How do I become a prayer warrior for you? And over time, he gives you that ability, and he gives you, I guess, the confidence, because it really comes down to you just being confident to approach someone to pray for them. But he's going to give you all of that wisdom and all of the grace and all of the words, because it's not you, it's the Holy Spirit and it's God.
Yeah. And on that, you never know if the verse that the Lord is going to speak through you will then become their life verse. That happened to a really good friend of mine at a youth conference once. I don't remember if it was her youth leader or a stranger, but they prayed over her And I don't even know if she revealed what was going on, but they prayed over her. I believe it was Psalms 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. That is still her life verse to this day. That's what she prays over me. It's what she prays over her friends. Anytime they're going through heartbreak or hardship, or anytime they feel that their heart is compromised in that season, she prays that over them and over and over and over and over again. And it's all from that one prayer. She had never read that verse before. Yeah. And it was because of someone praying over her. It stuck with her for the rest of her life and will continue to stick with her for the rest of her life. So don't discredit that prayer and not being sure if it actually did anything for somebody, because they might not get the opportunity to tell you later on, but just know and be firm in your belief and confident in your decision that you followed what the Lord was calling you to do.
Yeah, that's really good. We'll go on to the other people on the boat. There's the captain and the crew, and it says in the story that Jonah was the only person asleep, and during such a stressful event. I could not imagine. Everyone is full on panic. They're throwing stuff over the ship. Please don't let us sink. And he's just asleep. I'm like, it's almost like Jesus when Peter was on the boat and there was a storm. Jesus was asleep. He's like, nah, I got it. Don't worry. But Jonah is just asleep. And so every person on the boat is praying to their own God, and they tell Jonah to pray to his. And like I told you, they took a lot and they blamed Jonah, and they were like, what is happening? Now, the captain and the crew can be people in your life that may not believe what you believe. They may believe different things. They may live a different lifestyle than you, and they're all around you. They may belittle you for what you believe, and they may often argue with you about what you believe, and they may even use what you believe against them or against you. How do you take on the armor of God to protect yourself from the hurt? Because I know that we often on this podcast talk about, hey, this is what you do when someone's, disagreeing with you. You show them love, you show them kindness, you speak the truth. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. People are so hurtful now. How do you take on that armor of God and absorb people's hurt and still speak truth?
You have to remain steadfast and just remember, hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. They are either mad at God, so far removed from God, have never experienced what we have. And all that you're doing in that moment and all of their hatred and all of their harsh words is showing them an example of what following God would be like. And that's saying, okay, I hear you. If you're spewing hatred towards me, okay, I'm really sorry you're so hurt. I'm really, really sorry that you're so hurt.
Yeah.
But you know what? I hear you, and I really hate that you had to experience all of that.
Yeah.
You don't even... We've talked about this in services recently. It doesn't have to be, okay, you're hurting, but I'll pray for you.
Yeah.
To them, if they're so far removed, they're going to say, oh, great, to your man upstairs, the big man in the sky. Yeah. That used to hurt me the most. I remember going around in high school and in college and just feeling different. And that people would say, well, you just go on believing in whatever God you believe in. And it would hurt.
Yeah.
It would really, really hurt, because all I wanted was for them to experience or just taste what I have. And over time, and I'll be honest, it's not me. It's not Natasha, and it's the Lord working through you, but it's your efforts for the Lord to be able to use you as a vessel and remaining steadfast and just showing compassion towards those who hate you.
Yeah.
'Cause we're told that in the Bible. We're told that there are people that are going to combat you. We are told that it's a battle. You're coming to earth ready to battle for the kingdom.
Yeah.
You can do so with love, but sometimes it needs to be with truth as well. Give them something to think about. Don't come back at them and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know my God. You don't know blah, 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 blah. Because all that's going to do is fire them up to come right back at you with something else.
Yeah.
And then you're fighting fire with fire instead of just loving on them and them saying, I am being so horrible to you. Why do you love me?
Yeah.
Why are you showing me kindness?
I mean, like you said, it says in the Bible, like, we're going to have to combat things. It also says that Jesus said, you will be hated because I was hated first. And that is true. Like, oftentimes you'll come across people that absolutely don't believe what you believe in and make you feel pain by that, and like feel that. Don't hold on to other people's pain. And I also like encourage you, like, if there's someone just like spitting in your face and just trying to make you mad, if you're coming at them with truth, it's going to land on deaf ears. They're not ready to listen. They're not ready to hear what you have to say when they're so angry. But if there's things like, if they're just yelling at you and they just don't believe what you believe, it doesn't mean that you're not praying in your head and saying, God, like, I know whatever I say is just going to land on deaf ears, but please, like, I'm just praying for them. Like, go into them, let them feel something from you, even if it's not from me, but if it's from someone else. I know that it's hard in the world. Like, you just want to tell people and you want to scream it to everyone. But if it lands on deaf ears, don't be discouraged.
Yeah. And it's a journey. And I'm going to talk about family for a second, because I really feel like the Lord just put this on my heart.
Yeah.
Right now is I'll speak to myself personally.
Yeah.
I get so passionate when it comes to family and wanting to see those that I love in heaven. I don't decide their eternity. Yeah. I don't know what their private life looks like with God, but I know their interactions, and just knowing other friends and family that might have non-believers within their family. They'll say, I send them Bible verses and I tell them about the Lord, and I really feel like I'm doing everything, but they just are not getting it. What you said about deaf ears is so true, but the connection that they might be needing in that moment, each person is different, and each individual's journey is different. They might just need their cousin.
Yeah.
They might just need their brother.
Yeah.
They might just need their daughter.
Yeah.
They might have a past, the same way that you have cast a view on them as an unbeliever and all you're trying to do is get them to heaven. They might have a view on you as, she's not looking at me. She only cares that I believe in the God that she believes in. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Love them first for who they are.
Yeah.
Because that's what God does. God loves first.
Yeah.
He already loves them. Show that love to them. Show them the love as a brother. Show them the love as a daughter. Show them the love as a cousin, as a niece, a nephew, whatever it may be. Show them that love first.
Yeah.
Through that and through getting to know your heart, that's when the shift will start.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's not just shoving it in their face. And I really feel like the Lord wanted me to say that to all of you, because when it comes to family, it's so hard.
It is. It's hard.
It's so hard because you care about them and love them so much, but show them your love first.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Chew on that. We'll move on to the third thing, which is the sea. The sea is rough, rapid, unpredictable, and it sounds a lot like life.
Yeah.
Can you predict what's going to happen? No. Do you know what's going to happen a month from now? No. You can plan accordingly. You can dream. You can save money. You can put money aside. You can have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. Doesn't mean life's going to throw curveballs at you and it might change. How do you handle a life change that may be disappointing?
I mean, that's where faith comes in.
Yeah.
And that might be the Christian answer. In the moment, you might panic. And I think about the picture of Jonah sleeping while the seas are just going crazy. How often in the middle of chaos do you just want to lay down?
Yeah, a lot.
And just stop?
Yeah.
When there's so much to be done, there's so much that you need to do, there's so much to get done, but all you want to do is just lay there and sleep.
Yeah.
I think about that. And whenever life throws you a I just feel so much relation to Jonah in this is he says, no, I know I'm the problem.
Yeah.
I know I'm the cause of all of this. I think the reconciliation and the recognition of your mistakes and knowing if you've strayed away from God and you've ignored that gut feeling, you've ignored what he's called you to do, not as in a punishment, but it's God saying, wake up. Wake up. This is what I've called you to do. In the middle of the raging sea, come back to center and say, okay, wait, I might be the problem here. And that takes a lot of, you've got to remove your pride when it comes to that. Pride is a big thing that will continue to pop up and get in your way.
I feel like the biggest thing as a believer, you have to put your pride aside and be literally a shepherd to the Lord. Like you have to. When you have pride leading everything you do, it will affect your relationship with the Lord so much because you can't be vulnerable with him because of your pride. You can't have an honest conversation with the Lord because of your pride. You can't have an honest reflection of yourself because of your pride. And it's so detrimental.
Yeah.
So you really have to. But I love that you said Jonah took accountability because it's literally the next thing on the thing.
Yeah.
And it's so important to take accountability for your actions and things you've done in the past. And it's an intimate thing with the Lord. It really is, because he wants that relationship with you. He already knows what you've done. Like, it doesn't matter. It could literally be the dumbest thing of like, I needed to worship and I didn't. Like, I listen to throwbacks. I've done that sometimes. And God already knows that. Like, he just needs you to be like, Lord, like, I am being accountable for what I've done and I'm sorry. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to your calling. And that's so hard and it can be scary. But when you take that action of accountability, like, the Lord just sees that and blesses that. And it's going to take time, and it's going to take putting that pride down and just being vulnerable with yourself. But if God's calling you to do something, like, just do it. Like, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And the last thing I really want to talk about after, being accountable is the crew after Jonah is in the ocean. Because I wrote this in my Bible, and I really want to end with this. They said, I'm going to read it for you guys. At this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. And I wrote in my Bible, do you keep the vows you make? And I feel like a lot of times when we're praying, you're like, I'll make a mistake, I'll do better next time.
But do
you? Are you holding on to the vows you've made to the Lord? And I want to challenge you with that, and I want us to talk about it a little bit, because I remember, like, younger in my faith, I'd always say, like, I'm gonna do better, and I would always fall short, and that's okay. That's part of being a young believer and learning and growing, and like, it's just like maturity. It's maturity in your faith. But what does it mean to make vows to the Lord in your life?
I think it means making a commitment, obviously, and sticking to it. Easier said than done. We kind of went into conviction. I think it was last week. Yeah. And discussed conviction is a good thing.
It is. It is a good thing.
Sometimes you hate to feel it.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind of that gut punch of, whoa, something's not right here. But that's at least what I use as keeping myself on track and knowing if I'm wavering too far one way or the other with a vow that I've made to the Lord. Yeah. A commitment of, okay, I'm going to lead this group, and I'm going to lead this group fearlessly and unto the Lord, and let you speak through me. Natasha, okay, Lord, I feel like you've called me to lead this podcast, and I feel that you have called me to come and have this platform to speak to other women that are listening to us all over the world, but I'm not going to preach what I think. I'm going to preach what you are giving me for the platform, because you've given me this opportunity. You've given me this passion, right? And living in that conviction and making sure that you're not wavering too far on relying on yourself, and that you're relying on him.
Yeah. That's really good. I feel like if you're in a pattern of continuing to make mistakes, hold yourself accountable, find accountability partners, and most importantly, like have an honest conversation with God and continue to follow up with your relationship with him. Because I think you said it a couple episodes ago, is that, or maybe it was someone else, but they were like, God's just looking for you to be obedient to him and to be honest with him. And it starts with vows and following through with what he's calling you to do. And it can be little steps. I think it really helps if you have accountability partners, if you have prayer teams, if you have friends that believe the same thing as you, and obviously your relationship with the Lord. But following through with those vows to him is so important. It's almost like a marriage, like, and
yeah,
you say vows.
And here's a very simplistic view, right? I've made a commitment to you to show up and be here with you every time we record.
Yeah.
We record on a certain day and then the podcast goes live. If I don't show up, it's the Natasha show,
by myself.
Or you have made a commitment to me that I know if I show up and you're not here, I'm not getting in. There's not going to be a podcast. We're not going to be able to share what the Lord has put on our hearts to everyone listening. It can be, it's a reliability aspect. That's just an example. It's very different really than the vow that you make to the Lord.
It's so practical.
Yeah.
Like if you make a vow to go to church every Sunday, that's awesome. Do it. If you make a vow to serve, do it. Like, I mean, it's just so practical. And sometimes we make it big and we try to make it really small. But we really want to challenge you this week is, what does it mean to make a vow in your life? And are you following through? Mm-hmm. And are you holding yourself accountable?
And it could be with a project that the Lord is calling you to do. You feel led to teach. Okay, well, you're supposed to show up for those students that are there, that you're supposed to be a light in their world. It can be with anything. It doesn't necessarily just have to be in serving. It can be with whatever passion the Lord has called you to do. Okay, Lord, I'm going to write this book that I feel called to write. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, fill in the blank. Making that vow and committing that, okay, I know this is my calling. I'm going to follow through.
Yeah. And we hope that challenges you and we helped you champion every day.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.